theme of this year's Women's History Month is Choose to Challenge. The event today does just that. That's what we're hoping. It challenges traditional ideas of women's spaces and argues that women not only belong in the workplace, but that they belong in leadership positions in all sectors of society. Today, we will highlight the real life stories of the women that you see in front of you, who are all in leadership positions at BCSU. And we hope the event today will be insightful and inspiring to you. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce the different panel members, and I'm going to go in the order that they will be speaking today. So I will actually let each of you introduce yourselves. So Angie, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Angie Lefevre. I'm head of Central Services and part of the leadership team here at BCUSU.
Thank you very much. Beth, you're up next.
Hi everyone, my name's Beth Delaney and I am the Area Retail Manager for BCUSU in Member Services.
Fantastic. Sarah, you are next.
Hello, I'm Sarah Moore and I'm the People and Culture Manager, so I work for Angie's team in Central Services.
Okay, I think Kelly, you're up.
Hello, I'm Kelly Hough. I work in Central Services too, but I'm Assistant Finance Manager.
All right, and then Polly, who is the first of our executive officers.
Hi, I'm Polly. I'm the current Vice President of Academic Experience.
Victoria?
Hi, I'm Victoria. I'm your Union President.
And finally, Jinal.
Hi everyone, I'm Jinal and I'm your Vice President Equity and Inclusion.
Okay, now the exciting bit starts. For the panel members, I will ask all of you to turn your videos off. Angie will be the first one speaking. I think how this is going to run, I am going to give you each 6 minutes, and at 5 minutes, 30 seconds, I will raise the hand function. So Angie and all of the panel members, if you just keep an eye out for that hand function, here, I'll turn my video off as well. You will see that at 5.5 minutes, okay? You're up, Angie.
Okay, hello everybody. As you know, I'm Angie Lefevre, Head of Central Services and part of the leadership team here at BCSU. I'm just going to talk through my journey to become a senior manager within the Students' Union. I'll start right back at my roots. I come from a working class background, single parent family from when I was 9 years old, because unfortunately my mother passed away. I had 2 siblings. My dad was a factory worker. He became a shop floor supervisor and a union representative. We had some hard times and some good times in growing up. It was quite a struggle without having 2 parents there to share the burden, but we got through it, and that's the important thing. I left school at 16, and the career advice I was given when I left school was to either become, and excuse the term, kennel maid, because that is what was used in my day, or an office worker. And those were the options that were open to me. I didn't even know university life existed. That is how it was in my day. I lived in a small village at the time, which is now grown larger, but that is where you went. You left school at 16, and you, as a woman, you tended to go into an office and you would stay in that role, or become a secretary was probably the highest role that you would achieve success in. So my first job was at a kitchen company. I was a receptionist. I learned very quickly that I could pick things up quickly. I wanted to know what everybody else did. I wanted to know how the organisation functioned, how everybody who worked in it, how it all come together and made success. And I think that was just I think it's really important that you always learn about an organisation that you work for. And I think it does give you some real good skills and knowledge to take forward. Spent 2 weeks in an accounts department, knew that was where I wanted to go. And I had no chance of succession within that company because I knew the lady was never going to leave. Bit like me when you get to hear my story a bit further down the line. I saw the job advertised for finance assistant at Birmingham Polytechnic back in the day. So this is giving you an idea of how long I've worked here. I was nervous about applying. It was outside my comfort zone, hadn't got much experience, didn't think I had a chance. But my father always used to say to me, what's the worst anybody can do? The worst they can say is no, but you won't know unless you try. So that's another thing I will always say. Always push yourself outside your comfort zone. So I applied for the job, got there, got the job, can't believe it, couldn't believe it. And I started as a finance assistant back in 1981. So I think those of you who quickly do your maths, you can see that I've now been here for 40 years, which is a bit unusual, I think, in a working life. People do normally tend to move around. I've had lots of different titles. At the age of 25, I became an admin manager. So I looked after finance and the admin teams. And then as the organisation, the student union grew and the university started to change, my role just kind of developed within the organisation. I have to say I've never had to apply for one of my roles, which I hope is it shows my dedication to the organisation and that they saw an ability in me. And I became a finance manager. I've been a financial operations manager. I've been a deputy permanent secretary to the chief executive. And then I became head of central services. I have also done 3 stints of covering for the chief executive while we've been waiting for recruitment between positions. My job at the moment, I head up people and culture and finance, and I look after anything else that doesn't fit into another box. So that's the insurancy, security, data protection, those kind of things. So I look after all that as well. I've worked under 5 CEOs. I've had 4 men as my line manager and 1 woman. And we now have a team of 4 senior managers, which is made up of 3 males and 1 female. So I am the only female now on the senior management team. Some of the challenges I've faced along the way, I think when I became a manager, some of the challenges when you're a manager is understanding the difference between decisions you have to make at organisational level and the impact that may have on the people that you work with and the responses you may get. But you have to know that when you're in a leadership position, you sometimes have to make those difficult decisions, and they don't always sit well with people. But as long as you know you're making the right decision, it's right for the organisation, then you do need to do that. I became a mum, and I went back to work when my first child was 5 months old and my second was 3. Obviously still working for the Students' Union. It's hard. It is hard work. I'm not going to say it isn't, because I think women do still have to carry out those tasks at home of looking after the children. If the school had a problem, I was the one that got called. And no disrespect to my husband at all. I love him to death. But he went to work every day, did his job, came home. And I'm not saying he didn't help family life after that, but as in terms of the day-to-day life of my children and the running of the home, that was still left to me. So I was trying to juggle quite a high-profile job with lots of responsibilities, along with trying to raise 2 children at the same time and look after a home. But I've got through it, and I achieved it, and I did get my promotions through that time. One of the challenges I faced as well was, as I've said to you, I left school at 16. I don't have a degree. And one of my challenges was about my strategic thinking. Okay, I will try and hurry up. And I think I had a little bit of imposter syndrome going on. I didn't see that I was good enough. I was going into meetings with people that I saw with degrees, and I thought they were far higher beings than I was, and I struggled with that, but I did overcome it, and I learned to do that. But I think I'm probably going to have to stop there because Deena's had her hand up. So I had got some more to say, but I think that will come out in some of the questions that Deena's got for later.
Great. Thank you so much, Angie. That was fantastic. We're going to go to Beth next. So Angie, feel free to take your video off, and Beth, if you want to come on.
Hi guys. Right, thanks Angie, that was great. So hello everyone, can everyone hear me? Great. My name is Beth Delaney, and I am, as I said before, the area retail manager at Bcusu. I am originally from Coventry, but I've been in Birmingham now for 13 years. I grew up in a very happy home with two very academic brothers, who still are very academic brothers, and very academic parents, which is something I never believed I was. And I suppose my story really starts when I was at school. I was super shy, super reserved, and I was never ever one to put myself out there for the whole of my school life. My parents were both teachers and really wanted me to go off to university, and they did so with my brothers as well. So when I finished school, I got into Staffordshire University, and to be completely honest with you, I hated it. I hated being away from home. I was incredibly nervous, I was incredibly shy, and I didn't make any friends at all. And I completely doubted my ability to be there. But luckily for me, I managed very quickly to get a transfer over to BCU onto a similar course, which meant I was much closer to my family. And that's kind of where my happy story begins. So my first experience at BCUSU was in my very first year, actually I think in the first couple of weeks. And I was encouraged to join society by one of the exec members, who is actually now a senior manager at BCUSU. And he said that would help me make friends. So I joined what was then called Tiger TV, which was the society that followed the events and life around the university, making short videos for like an online TV station. And I made some really good friends, some of whom I'm still in touch with. I gained lots of confidence, and this actually led me to apply for a job at the Students' Union, which at that time I was working behind the bar called Bar 42, which doesn't exist anymore. And I remember to this day, in my welcome talk with the SU, I said I wanted to give back what the SU had given me when I first started at BCU. And I was 20 when I started working for the SU, and 12 years later, I'm still here. So I went behind the bar at Perry Bar campus. My confidence was growing. I wasn't that really shy person anymore. And I actually felt, you know what, I'm pretty good at this. And from there, I was offered a student supervisor role in the cafe at Perry Bar campus. And just like Angie, I got my nose stuck into everyone else's business and everyone else's way of working and how the organisation worked. And from there, I started covering other managers in other areas of the Students' Union in hospitality whilst they were off on holiday, mainly over the summer, learning all the different areas of hospitality and member services, which is the department I work for. And in the summer of 2014, actually, whilst I was covering a manager over at City South, I got a phone call and they said, how would you like to open a shop and manage this shop? I was great, rubbing my hands together. I was thinking, great, a new challenge. And I look back now and I think, how on earth did I manage? I'd never worked in a shop before. I'd never managed staff before. But I was so thankful for the confidence that my manager had shown in me at this time, this shy person that had come from school to this person that was now going to try and be a manager, that I got stuck in and got on with it. And I remember my first day as a manager, I had a supply meeting with some guys who I actually now have a really great working relationship with. And they were using words and phrases that I literally had no idea what they meant. I'd never heard of them. So I was just smiling, nodding along, writing it down. And I went home and I was researching. And now I've come from there to manage 3 shops. I manage 5 managers and supervisors and countless student staff. And I have days where I still don't know what things mean, but I just continue to teach myself and ask for help, which is a really important skill to have and to grow. And I often think, what if I hadn't been brave and strong and just said, I need to leave Staffordshire University? What if I'd stayed there? Like, where would I be now? And at the time, I was scared of letting my family down, you know, this academic family that I'm not really part of. I was scared of what people would think of me if I had quit university, you know, but I know that I needed to do what's right for me, and I'm really glad I did. And it shows the first choice you make in life may not be the one that's always going to be the best for you. If it's not right, be brave, make that decision, push yourself. You know, whilst being at BCSU, I've actually met my husband, who was part of that first society that I joined. And I have 2 very beautiful children. So my story isn't a very long one. I'm still finding my feet in my career as such. But I want you to know that as women, there's nothing you can't do. If you want to be a mum and work, that's great. It's difficult, to be honest, and it's not an entirely fair world out there. But BCUSU has given me the opportunity to be able to start my family and still progress my career. But if you don't want kids, that's great. You don't have to, and no one should tell you otherwise. I'm very lucky that I've had an extremely positive working life as a woman in management. I can't offer any horror stories or great advice to overcome the gender gap, because thankfully I've never really had to experience that in my working life. You know, I manage teams of women and men, both younger and older, and I feel very privileged to be able to do so. So I suppose the only time I've really come up against it is in working life, is looking after my kids. Deena's got a hand up, so I'll just be very quick here. Looking after my children, it is difficult trying to manage a working life and balance that with kids running around in the background. But again, BCSU has been really positive for me and helped me still push my career forward and look after my children. So I think I'm going to go over my 6 minutes. So I'll just say thank you for listening to what I've had to say. And I've got more to say like Angie, but I'm sure that'll all come out in the questions. So thanks, guys.
That was wonderful, Beth. Thank you so much for sharing. And yeah, great timing too. Okay, so next up is Sarah.
Hello. It's weird, I can only see myself, so I hope you can hear me. I've been having some intermittent Wi-Fi, but anyway, I will get going with my story. So my role here at BCUSU is the People and Culture Manager, and I've been in this post for about 2 years. This role is very much focused on looking at all of the HR matters, such as contracts, recruitment, compliance, employment law, as well as my favourite part, which is about influencing the culture of the organisation. It's about developing the people, helping to create an environment where our staff can grow and thrive. You know, having a more engaged and motivated staff team ultimately means we will all be doing a better job, enabling us to achieve our organisational mission, which is to empower students with the means to shape their own lives, which is why we're all here. How I've got to this position is a bit of a journey, and as you're going to obviously hear, even just from the 2 stories we've had so far, that you know, there's no right or wrong way to build a career. So my early career began in sales in the recruitment and the property industry. I took natural increments up the ladder, awarded more responsibilities, team leader, manager, the sort of normal career trajectory as you would imagine. Life was going well. I had my first child. I'd been planning on going back to work to my old role and had already agreed to return to come back part-time 3 days a week. I had my return to work meeting and I was put at risk of redundancy. Being eminently practical, I thought that's fine, I will just go and get another job. But finding a comparable job on a part-time basis was not what I'd expected. Part-time roles felt non-existent at manager level. They were all very much focused on lower level type roles. I didn't want to rule the world, but I did want a position that used and respected my skills. And it seemed the choices I had was either to take a lower level role that offered part-time hours or choose a career move on a full-time basis. And that was a really hard decision to make. I had this beautiful little baby who, you know, I wanted to be with. We didn't have any family support locally, and the option to go back to work full-time was really daunting. Anyway, luckily I wasn't made redundant, so I went back to work as planned, part-time. And all went well. I was juggling motherhood and work. I had another promotion, you know, despite being part-time. You know, it was a really good company who recognised me for the skills I did have, rather than focusing on the number of days a week that I could work. But I knew that not everywhere was like that. 4 years later, I had baby number 2, and my role at the time had some national and international travel, and life was just a bit more complicated. I was now doing 2 nursery school runs, and I had quite a few sort of nail-biting journeys on the motorway, like won't I make it back in time to get there for 6 o'clock? And also I wanted something different. You know, I'd worked for that company for 7 years. So back to the job papers I went, and it was the same old story. And if I'm honest, I did have a bit of a career crisis at that point. I genuinely felt like the 12 years worth of my career, you know, building up, you know, my career gradually had kind of been for nothing. Anyway, I got a grip of myself and decided I would go back to uni and retrain. I researched to see if there's anything that I could do with my original degree, which was in psychology, so I wasn't starting all over again, and discovered occupational psychology, which is all about psychology of the workplace and the people in it. So it was basically like getting the best out of people, which is what I'd really loved during my career and hopefully done well at. So I thought, let's give this a go, see what happens. I started it on a part-time basis whilst carrying on working. At the same time, I did get a new role working in a charity in business development. It was a bit of a salary drop, but it was local and it made use of my skills. And it was an opportunity to work in the charitable sector, which I found really interesting. Within 1 year, the CEO of that small charity left, and I was lucky enough to get the opportunity to take on that role. I was still on a reduced hours basis, and it was a really great experience. Concurrently, I'm still doing my master's at this point, and I kept being drawn back to the issues in the workplace, such as the impact of motherhood on careers, the gender pay gap, the lack of women in the boardroom. So I chose to focus my research on what's been termed the hidden brain drain, which is evidenced by the fact that 4 out of 5 women who work on a part-time basis are doing so at least one level, if not more, beneath the last full-time job they'd held. The theory's sound, isn't it? You know, you take a step back at work, you'd be more available to family, but actually the reality was really different. The research was showing that these women who were occupationally downgrading were actually more stressed and less satisfied than women who were carried on in full-time careers. But yet so many women were doing it, and once you had done it, it was very hard to recover the lost grounds in terms of the salary and status. Women significantly dominate the part-time working market, and I wanted to know why this option to go part-time was so negative. For me, the answer was inextricably linked to the recruitment market. 96% of firms offer flexible working. You know, you've proved yourself, you know, we've all got the right to request flexible working. I feel like employers, you know, even then were and are now much more likely to grant reduced hours or flexible roles, just like in my experiences. But in contrast, when you were trying to move on or find a new position with flexibility, the recruitment options were significantly more limited. Just 9% of vacancies, this was in 2015, but 9% of vacancies at 25,000 and above were advertised with flexible or part-time options, so really limited choices. And so whilst it was nice to know I wasn't alone, I felt there had to be another way. And so this inspired me to set up my own business, which was a recruitment agency, recruiting for professionals on a part-time basis. It was good and, you know, generally did well, and I ran it for 3 years. Although running your own business isn't always the dream that you think it might be. Everything's on you, and if I'm honest, I'd started to miss having colleagues and being part of a team, and also having the opportunity to use some of the skills that I gained during my masters. So in a quiet moment, feeling curious, I just thought I'd have a little browse and see what was out there, and then this role popped up. So people and culture manager, sounds great, carried on reading. University, great. Students' union, I loved university life, I was a big fan of the Students' Union. It was part-time. I was like, that is amazing. That is unheard of at a manager level. And I honestly thought it was too good to be true. Anyway, I decided to go for it. I'll just a couple of seconds more. Applied for it, didn't think I'd get it. And anyway, here I am. So quite a few twists and turns, but I genuinely believe that each experience has led to another, creating a whole range of experiences that I feel very grateful to draw upon. So that's 20 years done, and who knows what the next 20 years have got to hold.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That was really interesting research I didn't even know you'd done. So thank you for sharing your story. Next up is Kelly.
Okay, so as we said before, I'm Kelly Hough. I'm Assistant Finance Manager. Just a bit of background into my early life. I was brought up in a family with siblings, male and female. There was never disparity between us, my brother and me. Both of my parents worked. My mum would look after us in the day, and then my mum would go out to work in the evening. So my dad would look after us. There were no men's jobs and women's jobs. Both my parents were equal. So I felt like my early upbringing was great. No disparity between men and women. Now, as I started uni, I came into a long-term relationship, which had an effect on the way I am. I studied at this university. Back then it was the University of Central England. I did a HND in finance and then a degree in accountancy. I left there after 4 years because of doing a HND and a degree. I then started my first job in a company that sold mobility scooters and mobility aids. Absolutely hated it. It was a male-orientated environment. The owners were male. My work colleagues were male, but my work colleagues were great. They had me posing for a magazine as a secretary to put me on the front cover of a magazine they were sending out to their prospective buyers to show their products, and had me in a role as a secretary, even though that wasn't the role I went for. So I didn't last there very long. Only a few months, but then I saw a job advertised at Bcusu, which was back then UCE, and I started I was interviewed by Angie, who's on the call, and I've been working here since 2003, so almost 18 years. It'll be 18 years next month. Now, the reason I spoke about my having a relationship at the start of uni is my ex-partner was very controlling and suppressed me. So when I started in this role, I had virtually no confidence. I would trade work. I hated making phone calls, so I would trade work with colleagues. Had no confidence in my ability. But over the years, Angie especially, as it has inspired me a lot, because she's seen in me what I didn't see in myself. She has encouraged me, she's challenged me to do jobs beyond what my actual role was. I started off as an accounts assistant. Within a few years I became senior finance assistant, and then through working life, you know, I've had struggles with my relationships and that, but BCUSU has always been supportive. Both men and women have always been very, very supportive of me, and if it wasn't for them, I'm not sure, you know, I would be where I am right now. And further on in my career, I managed to separate from my partner, and from that point on, within a year, I was offered the role of assistant finance manager. So basically, BCUSU saw leadership in me before I saw it in myself. They had sent me on a leadership course, which was a mix of men and women. Throughout my whole career here, I've never felt like there was a disparity between men and women. I always felt like we're equals. So I've had, the only experience I've had of being detrimented as a woman is in my first job, which didn't last long, which is, you know, working for BCSU has been absolutely amazing. The challenges that I've had, whilst they were not, I've not got children, but the challenges I had were emotional with my ex-partner. I now feel so much better. I have my own home. I run all that by myself. And, you know, the support from, as I say, the support from work has been absolutely amazing. I don't think I would be where I am. And it's just that although I obviously had that will in me, it was deep down inside, and it took others to bring it out of me. And, you know, I have got to where I am now, but I just needed that little that push. And I'll never be, well, not never be, I can't say never, be the most confident person in the world, but the difference in me from when I started to where I am now is tremendous. So that's me, I'm afraid. Very short and sweet, sorry.
There is nothing to say sorry for, Kelly. Thank you so much. I think I just want to highlight there what Kelly was saying about, you know, being supported by other women, particularly, and you know, in BCSU, I absolutely take the point that it doesn't feel for me as well that there is any disparity between men and women, but yeah, just I like that you highlighted how important Angie has been in your career and in your journey. Okay, so next up we have Polly.
Hello, everybody. I'm Polly. I'm the current Vice President of Academic Experience, as we kind of met. Now, I know we've had a lot of kind of long stories about, you know, having a career. Unfortunately, I'm not at that stage yet. After this role, will go back to finishing off my third year of university. So I'm going to pretty much cover my earlier stages of my life and where I then hope to go. So I grew up in a 5-person household with my mum and my dad and a younger sister and older sister. Having that relationship of just having siblings, one older and one younger, really gave me a good idea of what to predict or expect when coming up. Seeing my older sister go through her life, I think I'm 6 years younger than her, so seeing her go through moving into secondary school was pretty good, and really gave me a drive and a confidence in myself to kind of be like her and be as good as her and as smart as her. I think I really looked up to her at the time, despite having many childish fights. Normally my little sister and older sister would team up against me, but we'll ignore that bit. And I was really fortunate to live in an area where there was on offer a grammar school, specifically a all-girls grammar school, which I ended up going to. And that experience of just pretty much feeling like there wasn't any ability for gender disparity in that all-girls grammar school. You were driven and taught you can be whoever you want to be. You know, you can make yourself and really drive to go to any university and go to any job role you want. And that was really proactive for me. And I think a lot of my determination and my knowledge that I am just as equal to anyone, to a man, to anyone older than me, I can still have the same kind of ability to succeed, maybe not the same experience, but definitely I have the drive and determination to get there. And that kind of led me down a path of taking on pretty much any opportunity I have, and I'd gobble it up. So I did a flying scholarship because I was at that time really interested into going into the aviation industry. I did a complete U-turn on that later on in my life, but that was an amazing experience just to be able to get and see kind of that industry and what it would look like for me. And alongside that, there was various other things that I kind of stuck my hands into, like a Women in STEM Day that was hosted in the local kind of STEM areas, and like big tours and kind of how to get women into engineering was the main topic. It's something that I was really interested in going into. However, when it came to my personal feelings, I really enjoyed creativity in music and in the medium of media. And you know, through my various kind of projects and things in my school, we did I remember this very, very vividly. We did a horror. We created a horror film in French. It was genuinely terrible. I'm not great at French, but I really enjoyed editing and putting that together, which led me into basically looking to do media at college, which I shifted out of the grammar school area and went into a more of a college which offered a lot more BTECs, whereas my grammar school was primarily focused on A-levels, which is a really interesting shift. And actually being around, I know it sounds weird, but being around then men and teenage boys and how they interacted with us, I found really weird for a start, because I hadn't had that experience for a good 6 years of my education. And that then experiencing a little bit of sexism through, you know, trying to join clubs and then being told, oh no, that was a little bit difficult. And it was just about the comments they'd make more than anything else, which was just odd more than anything. But it was good to be able to still talk to all my female friends who'd gone into that environment of a mixed college as well and kind of relate in the experiences there. But from that, I did media and I did music production, and I really exceeded in media and really enjoyed it. So I came obviously to BCU because of all the studios on offer to study media. During my time at college, I also did part-time work in a bar and in pubs, in a pubs rather than a bar. But I was getting, as I kind of took on more jobs and more roles, frustrated at not being given the same responsibility as the men I was working with in one of the places I worked at. I would not be offered things like serving certain tables, and when I made a mistake, I wasn't really taken on board and allowed to then serve larger tables because I made a mistake in one order. That really frustrated me because it's part of the learning experience, and I felt really kind of shut down because of that. But it put my drive to succeed more in my part-time work, and when I moved to university, I got another job up here in another bar, and properly, you know, tried to fly. And I was really fortunate that the company I then moved to working with was really trying to drive and improve the students or the people they worked with and hired as well, which is really great, and being able to drive forwards from that. But yeah, I know I haven't touched on where I expect to go, but I think as a kind of summary statement, my experience of like probably being in an all-girls grammar school really led me to have a full confidence in knowing I can be just as equal, and that's really shaped my experience of just diving into any position of leadership or gaining more experience has been where I've led myself to. I know that was a bit more of a ramble than everyone else, but yeah.
Fantastic, Polly. Thank you so much. And I can completely see how your history has led you to where you are now. You definitely jump into an opportunity you're given. So that's fantastic. Next up is Victoria.
Hi, everyone. I'm Victoria, and I'm your union president. I just want to take you way back to the very beginning. I was always told I was too loud, too opinionated, and I was always so much more known for my exotic body because I am British Spanish than my passions, my personality, or my opinions. And I was always that girl who would put a hand up when the teacher said, "Can I have some boys to move the chairs?" And it's a simple, small sentence that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it does mean a lot, because what it does is it applies a boundary between a man and a woman that is physical. And I was always interested in sports, and I was always interested in physical activity. And as a gymnast growing up, I saw that there wasn't necessarily this perception of muscular women in the media. And that really interested me. So I started studying media. And lo and behold, I ended up at BCU, and I was really interested at this point in politics because of Brexit. Brexit affected my mum in more ways than one. And actually, Brexit meant that my mum had to relook at her state of living in the UK. She'd been here at that point for almost 30 years, and she couldn't vote. So I did on her behalf. And that showed me not only was my mum put at a disadvantage because she was an immigrant, but also in life as she went through, she was a woman, a female immigrant who had to apply and apply and apply. And she knew if they heard her voice and they heard her accent, the likelihood is that she wouldn't get the job. Now, I took from this what I could, and I saw the barriers that she faced. I am so lucky that my mum made sure that my education was as good as it could be. She sat with me in phonics lessons to ensure that not only her own voice, but my voice sounded the way that it should to other people, even over the phone. Now, my student journey isn't simple, but I will take you through it as well as I can. I started off as a student academic leader within the student union. I found out about Project 100. I attended these student advisory panels where we were asked to give our opinion. I mean, for me, that was amazing. That's my bread and butter. Absolutely, let me share my voice with you. But what I realized as I went along is that actually people who needed to be a part of these conversations weren't a part of these conversations, and I didn't understand why. So I was told about the elections, and I thought to myself, well, heck, I'd love to be women's officer. So between 2017 and 2018, I worked very hard in my role as women's officer to bring about a campaign focused on the educational consent. During that year, I realized what had happened to me, how it made me feel, and I finally spoke to authorities about it. I spoke to the nurse about it. And knowing what I know now, looking back, I'm so proud of myself for having done and taken that step, because it meant that I was able to move forwards in my journey as a student leader in a way that was beneficial, not only to me, but to the people around me. So when my year ended as women's officer, I took to being a student academic leader again, and then eventually a school rep. I set up the Protected Women's Society alongside a very amazing woman called Aisha Din, who studied law here at BCU. And that Women's Society went on to win an award for the best new society. And we managed to recruit over 100 students in the space of 6 months before the pandemic hit. I was so lucky to then be elected as president of BCSU and to sit here where I am today in this chair. I am not the same person that I was when I started 7 months ago, but I'm also not the same person that started in September 2016 on a media and communications course. I'm now about to graduate, fingers crossed, my degree in digital marketing, and I'm really looking forward to the development of my leadership positions in my future, but it has not come without one thing. I've noticed that because of the privileges I have been able to make these steps. I've been surrounded by women who have raised me up. I've been surrounded by men who have raised me up. And one thing that I think that every woman in leadership knows and knows well is that when we see another woman attempting to join us in leadership, we don't see it as a threat. We see it as a welcomed hello, because actually what we're doing and what we're able to do then is encourage that woman to come with us, to join this journey of creating a more diverse space for everyone. And BCSU as an organization have really started to come through with this in mind, encouraging women to apply from many different backgrounds. And it's important that we see BCSU become the diverse space that it can be. Thank you so much for listening to my little leadership story, and I hope that you've taken away something from that.
That's fantastic, Victoria. Thank you. And thank you for highlighting that idea that, you know, I think all the women on the panel would agree with, the idea of creating a more diverse space, you know, not just that women are involved, but that people of all backgrounds are involved in the work that we do. I think this is the vision that we've got. So thank you, Victoria. We're going to bring our last panel member on the stage now. Jinal.
Thank you, Deena. Just to begin with my story, I would like to say the reason I'm here, sitting here, and the reason I came into leadership is just because of my parents. Before we were born, my dad and my mom, they come from really different background. My dad is Jain and my mom is Christian. So they brought change in society. They were already in leadership and they were trying to bring change in the society. I come from a really small village where no one have heard. It's called Wankal. And my dad especially moved us to the city called Mumbai just for education, so that we get a proper education and we can do something in life. We have I've got 2 sisters and 1 brother. My dad always have challenge as a man. He has always challenged each individual to, you know, participate in different kind of activities, and even though it's difficult, even if we don't get, he have always motivated. Career wise, my mom, she have always motivated me. She's a doctor. My dad worked hard for my mom to finish her MBBS, and when I looked at my mom with the coat and she works really hard, I decided in a second when I was in nursery that I will become a doctor. And as you can see, I am studying biomedical science now. So both of the parents have inspired me in my life, and they have always pushed me to do things. In the school, as I was moved to the city, from a village to a city, I was really shy. Everything was new for me. I used to do great in my exams, but couldn't able to participate in class activities, couldn't able to speak. I was a shy person. And my school was really amazing that they gave me a counselor for me, like why I am like this. And she was a woman as well. And she pushed me to different debates, and she nominated me for a head girl position in the school. I came out from my shyness. I could feel confident, and I have done really great that I have achieved so many things back in India. When I came to UK, study with Bcusu, Jessica Wong, who is the student service coordinator, I started my journey in PCYC, and she saw my certificate and she put me for student rep. She is the another woman who have always pushed me, because this country was new for me as well. She have pushed me for different things like participate in BCSU activities, push student to apply for Graduate Plus, let student know about the run a survey, like are they happy to have have BCSC in City South, because City Center, because it was in Bonville campus. So we ran a survey together with Jay. He became my first friend, and it was really amazing journey. And with that, with the support of Jessica Wong, I could do a lot of things, like I could apply for Graduate Plus. I was student ambassador. I applied for 2020 as a buddy and received an award as well. And I started my own society, which is called BCIC Society, which helps students to understand the UK method of teaching and style, how they can upload their assignments and regular activities. So it has inspired me day by day, each and every day, from the students I see who are in leadership, who were in leadership previous years, and now as well. And day by day, I'm learning each and everything. PCSU, I started knowing more when I got involved in One City Conference, where Victoria was there as well. and where I see different leaders, and I thought that, you know, that they are doing such an amazing job. There was a student who came across to me talking about LGBT community, and it inspired me to stand for equity and inclusion, because in India, equality is not much recognized, and I thought to run for equity and inclusion. And I am hoping in upcoming years that I will do more and more good. And to be very honest, without support of staff member at Bcusu and Bcusu, without support of my parents, I couldn't be able to be in leadership or could understand what leadership is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jinal, and thank you to all the panelists. I think one thing that I've noted through listening to each of your stories is that you've been very vulnerable in telling your stories, and I personally, I really appreciate that. I think that's where learning comes from, and you know, I have found all of your stories to be really insightful and inspiring. So thank you very much for sharing them. The next bit of our program today will involve all the panelists coming back onto video. So please, panelists, come back. Let's see you all. Hello, hello. And I've got a few questions that I'm going to ask. We'll see what kind of time we've got. But I'm going to ask some questions, and I'm not going to ask that every panel member answers every question, but if you feel that you want to make a contribution, just I'll say raise your hand. That's the easiest way to designate the speaker. So our first question, I'm jumping right in here with the hard stuff. What do you think is the most significant barrier? Here, I'll turn my video on, sorry. What do you think is the most significant barrier to female leadership? Told you I was jumping right in. Go on, Victoria.
I'd say one thing for me that's pretty daunting, that I know some people in this room have already been through, is the fact that I do want to be a parent in the future, but also how do I know at what point is the right point to be able to do that? Obviously, with life comes different things, but I think the fact that nowadays the conversation around paternity, maternity leave is a lot better, but even now thinking about it is a little bit daunting, because you never know when you step into a company unless you're looking at it, unless you're actively asking about it, what their procedure or policy will be. And I think that's a little bit scary, because I am very career driven, but also I know that I want to have a family. So there's almost this kind of, do I have to still choose between one or the other? And these conversations that we've had today have been really insightful in the fact that you don't have to just choose one or the other, and that's okay. But yeah, I'd say for me, that's like the scariest barrier of impending doom that I could say right this very second. Yeah.
Okay, it's not that bad, Victoria, but we're gonna. I understand before you have children, it seems like a really daunting task to have children and to also have your career. So I'm not going to speak. It's not my time to speak. I'm going to let Beth speak next.
Hello. So obviously my hand went up. Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that, because I was going to talk about it in my bio, but I kind of rambled too much. I think that when I decided I wanted children, I was quite young. I had my first child at 23, 24. How old was I? I can't remember. I was young, and I remember distinctly the conversations I had with my husband being around, I am scared of going on maternity leave because what if I don't have a job to come back to? I am scared of going on maternity leave because what if I come back and someone's taken over? I'm scared of having a child and not being able to do my job to the fullest and having to deal with having that child. And it is a really scary thought. However, I'm going to put the positive spin on this now, is that I've been through 2 maternity leaves, one of which I still haven't really returned from because of COVID. I know Deena is in the same boat. We haven't been in work for so long. We're working from home, obviously. And I just want to uplift anybody who is terrified of the thought of having children, if they do want to start a family, that in this day and age, we are moving towards things being slightly more fairer. Is that a word, fairer? We're very lucky that in the Students' Union, we're seriously supported, majorly supported. I had all the support through my maternity leave, both times, all the support through my return. I remember sitting outside crying, thinking, I'm going back to work after nearly a year. I'm going to be able to do my job as well as I did. And I did. And I got back. And now I've got a 1.5-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I'm happy. I'm pushing my career forward. And yeah, just not to, take those stigmas that were kind of in the past about women not going to work, because you can go to work, you can have children. Yeah, okay, there's still inequality with the fact that when nursery rings, it's always me that has to go pick up the baby or whatever. But we're coming into a world now where you can have something called shared parental leave. You don't have to be the one that stays at home after having a baby. My husband stayed at home for 8 weeks, and I went, and I didn't go back to work because there was COVID, but I stayed at home as well. So things are changing. Feel positive about it, because you can have kids and work. I am living proof of that, and I'm the most unorganized person in the world. So please don't be terrified of that. You can do it. Have I still got my hand up? Yes, I have.
Thanks, Beth. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I guess one thing that I'm hearing there is as well, and we may all be slightly biased here in this organization, but the organization that you, or the company or whatever that you work for, does matter. Some organizations are much more supportive to women in these situations. So I think that's a good thing to highlight for any attendees, that it does matter where you work, and these are things that you would look at, when you are when they're interviewing you, you're also interviewing them, and these are the sorts of questions that, if you are interested in being a leader and you are interested in having a family, ask these questions straight up front. You want to know what their policies are, particularly around maternity, paternity, shared parental leave. Sarah, do you want to come in?
Yeah, so I absolutely agree with that, Deena. Choose wisely in terms of your organisation, but also get your partner, the co-parent, the daddy, whichever it is, to choose wisely as well, and make sure that you have those conversations. But I actually think, whilst flexibility at work is one of the barriers, I don't think it's the biggest barrier. And unfortunately, I think the biggest barrier is actually women ourselves. And unfortunately, there is some research out there which is about confidence levels in women. And, it's been really inspiring to hear everybody's stories. But one of the common themes that I think a lot of people have said is we've all had to either dig deep or kind of rely on somebody else showing us that actually we're capable of doing it. And going back to the research I did when I did my master's, there was some research which shows that when men and women are presented with a job specification of a job that they're thinking of applying for, men will read it and they'll think, I can probably do about 60% of that. I'm going to stick my application in and see what happens. Women will think, I can only do 60% of that. I'm not going to apply because I don't want to, be disrespectful to them because I haven't quite got it all. They've asked for this and I haven't got it. And so kind of slowly we kind of count ourselves out of things. And I'm not saying totally across the board. And obviously there's, of course, really positive examples, but there is that little bit of a cultural trend. And a while back, Sheryl Sandberg, I can't remember her position, but head honcho in Facebook, did a TED talk called Lean In. And it's all about, at the times when you feel that you can't do it, that is the absolute time to lean in and be like, I can do it, and put yourself out there, even though it's going to be really scary and you're not sure, what's going to come out of it. But that's the time to do it. And, as kind of everybody's stories have shown, each little thing that you do kind of leads naturally on to the next thing. And even if it takes you down a path that you weren't expecting, it will all come good in the end. And it's a total mix of, life and everything together. So that would be my biggest barrier, have confidence, even when you feel like you haven't got confidence.
That's great and very insightful, Sarah. Thank you. Angie, do you want to come in next?
Yeah, I think I agree with everything Sarah's just said. I think those have been some of the things on my journey, is sometimes that confidence and getting over those barriers. But I think another barrier that women do experience is that it's when you have that social aspect of going out. So I think it's much easier for a man to go out into society for a night out, for a drink with those people are in leadership, but women may have other things like the childcare that they need to take care of, or the family home. And also there's also that about anxieties of being out late and getting home. And I think that creates barriers, because I think a lot of relationships within organisations can be formed when you're having that social side of things. We don't experience that so much at BCSU because we've got the pub on campus and we can be in a safe environment. But I do think that is a barrier to some women. I have friends who feel that they have been suppressed, if you like, in their career options over men because the men have gone out, I don't know, perhaps they've gone and played golf together, or they've gone to a football match together, and that might not just sit with where a woman is in life at that time. And they feel that when it came to promotion and they applied as well, that the man got it over the woman. And was that about that they felt they had more freedom? So I think there are some barriers there around how we can mix within an organisation and find our place, if you like, within that organisation, within those teams.
That's very interesting, Angie. Thank you. It's not even something that I'd thought about previously, but it makes perfect sense. I definitely have found myself in those shoes a few times, and it does feel like a barrier to being part of the culture of an organization. So I completely get that. Does anybody else have anything they want to offer for this question? Or shall we move on? All right, I'm seeing move on. So the next question is, I think we've sort of already answered this, but if anybody has anything to add, if you haven't added something on this during your personal speaking time, feel free to add it now. Have you ever doubted your abilities, and how did you overcome this? So again, I know that we've heard from various different people about doubting themselves, but particularly interested on the how do we overcome these barriers? So Victoria, I think I saw your hand first.
So I actually am really glad you've asked this question. So obviously everybody who knows me knows that I'm really quite loud. I'm quite in people's faces in terms of who I am as a person and my personality. And one of the things that I had to do was figure out how to tailor that to people so that I wouldn't be too much. I think that's the phrasing. And actually what I realized was that tailoring it and changing who I was never going to see me be successful in what I wanted to do. And so what I thought was, right, well, I'm not going to change because this is who I am. I am loud. I am, opinionated in the right way. And what I made sure was to deliver that information in the appropriate way. And one of the things that I found through my student leadership route is that I placed myself in areas that wanted people like me, that were willing to go up and talk to strangers and say, hey, what do you think about this? Let's have a conversation. Being a student academic leader, that's exactly what that takes. You have to approach your class and say, hey, that's how I wanted my president to be. I'm so glad, Amir. Thank you. I would have to approach my class and say, hey, everyone, do you have any issues and any problems? And then you have to have really difficult conversations. And those difficult conversations were what allowed me to learn and grow within my leadership and understand something called servant leadership, which works perfectly with my type of personality. And I think one thing that I would say to anyone is have a look at the stereotypical forms of leadership and see where your personality and skill set lies, because we're all very different leaders, all of us in this room, and we're all sat in very different places within our leadership journeys. And I think the fact that we've all touched base on some very similar things is really reassuring, but also the fact that we are different in our own niches is really great, because it just means that we've allowed our personality to thrive during our leadership journey instead of allowing the journey into leadership mold us. So yeah, that would be what I'd like to contribute.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, Victoria. You know, you're highlighting the fact that we come as we are, and that's okay. And as Sarah was saying, we've got to lean into that. We've got to lean into what our skill set is and what our, you know, what our personality may make us sort of suitable for. But we all have a place at the table, and it's about realizing that. So thank you. I saw Angie's hand next, and then Polly will let you speak after. Okay.
Yeah, I think I want to share a little bit of a different story in terms of, have you ever doubted your abilities? You all know I've worked for the Student Union for 40 years, and you know, I've seen success in my career here at the Student Union, and as all the women here have said, it is a really good environment to be in, and you know that there are no barriers really. If the positions are there, you know, I think you do have an equal opportunity. But I think I just want to come from another little bit of an angle where sometimes, even though you can appear to be a strong person, is what's going on inside of you. And I didn't think in my life I would ever have a time when I had a wobble, I call it, where I actually started doubting myself. Was I able to do this job? Is it what the organisation was looking for? I am the only female as a senior manager, although BCSU, believe me, is just a wonderful place to work in terms of that. So there was no discrimination or anything like that. But I had a wobble, and I remember driving home. I actually walked out of work. I was driving home. I was absolutely in tears, couldn't stop crying. And I didn't realise I was going into this big black hole. And what I didn't do was ask for help, because I thought that people would judge me based on that. And I was a woman trying to, you know, work in this world of being a leader. And I felt that a leader shouldn't crack, and they should be this strong, powerful person. And actually, the best thing I ever did was reach out and ask for help, because I think I would have gone further down into that big black hole that I was heading into. And all I just wanted to say out really to all of you is that sometime you may have a wobble in your life, and if you do, I just ask you to reach out. It's the best thing I did, and it got me back on track and allowed me to continue to perform in my role. So I just wanted to share that in a way of where I doubted my abilities, but I sought out the help I needed. So I just wanted to share that really.
Thank you so much, Angie. I think that really highlights, you know, for me, it's really reassuring as somebody who is not in a manager position yet. You know, the idea that you don't have to be perfect. Every person will have a time when they doubt themselves, when they don't know everything, you know, when they maybe have mental health issues, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it doesn't mean that you can't be in leadership. And, you know, when you do find yourself in that place, that there is help. And I think if you open yourself up and you allow yourself to be vulnerable with the people around you, in a lot of cases, people aren't going to take advantage of that. They're going to support you when you need to be supported. So thank you for sharing that, Angie. Polly, do you want to come in next?
Mine's rather not similar to Angie's, but along a similar strain, so to speak, where when I was about 16 and going between high school and college, at that time, my family basically fell apart and my parents went through a divorce, and that massively impacted mainly my father and my younger sister, along with my mum, but she's the one who left the house. At that point, my older sister had left for university anyway, so she was kind of out of the point, and it was at that point where I didn't have anyone I could turn to for emotional support, because I was being kind of not the support from I was kind of being the support for my dad and my little sister, and that was really difficult, trying to manage that and not have an outlet for my own emotions, and that's similar to Angie's strain, where it really affected me on the decisions I was making, and on kind of, you know, doubting whether I could. At that point, I was doing my GCSEs, so it's not exactly fully leadership, but still leading myself along in life, and that really impacted me. I dropped out a lot of the kind of extracurricular exercises I did, simply because I just didn't feel like I could do them, and there was too much of a strain on me, and that really, I think, had a lot of impact. And I was fortunate enough where, past everything, like the dust kind of settled at that point, I went and asked for help on, can I get a bit of counselling, please? Because I feel I would need it, and that really set me up ready to go into college. But I'm really glad I did that. But that massively impacted me. And then on a similar kind of strain, I think I started to doubt myself when I moved to university, and I moved completely away from my family and the people I knew. No one else I knew went there, and I really struggled to kind of make friends. And I still don't really get the full kind of. I went to university and I started probably like going to the whole like drinking, you know, the drinking culture, and I made friends based on that. And then I decided actually that's probably the worst thing I could have done for myself, and just stop drinking. And I kind of lost that friendship group at the point where everyone else had already made their friendship groups. And at that point, I kind of doubted. Well, I really felt like I couldn't really bond with my course mates and my classmates. And I doubted. I was trying to like take on production management roles in my course because I did media production, and I doubted my ability to do that or to bond with them or getting them to listen to me. When I was saying, hey guys, we need to get this done because it's for our assignment, which is due in like a week's time, and no one would listen to me, or they'd just walk out of class. And I found that really hard, but I had a good talk with my tutor and my lecturer around about, you know, actually I can't make them do anything, and I'm trying to do the right thing, but they're just not paying attention. And I just found having that kind of support of someone who's watching what we're doing rather than actively involved really useful. And it's not something I really had anyone else to turn to again. I think for me, I doubt myself most when I don't have someone to talk to and talk through things, either because they're kind of invested in it and it's going to just make it worse for them, or I just don't have friends at the time.
Yeah, again, it's so important to have that support network. And I will sort of highlight, you know, I think at this organization, we are really very fortunate to have some of that support built into what we offer through People and Culture. And in all fairness, a lot, you know, Sarah has made huge strides in the time that she's been here in some of that well-being support. You know, so if it is like you know, you're looking to be in leadership, you're looking for your next employment, these are things that you want to ask, you know, what sort of support is available to me, and just recognize that that's not something that you